For more on this, let's bring in James Garbarino. He's a forensic psychologist and the author of Listening to Killers, Lessons Learned from My 20 Years as a Psychological Expert Witness in Murder Cases. He joins me now from Chicago. James, in your opinion, how does Manson stand apart from other serial killers?
Well, he's certainly so flamboyant and the crimes were so extreme and high profile. But in some sense, he's not unusual in the sense that he came out of a background of psychological deprivation and rejection, and coupled with whatever temperamental vulnerabilities he brought with him into the world, and that's a very dangerous combination. And he certainly was smart enough to manipulate people. He had that charisma that drew vulnerable people in. So he's sort of a very extreme, sort of grandiose form of something that's not unique to him.
So it was the cult of personality in many ways, but the people that he targeted were also vulnerable because it was sort of a lost era in some ways.
I mean, there's followers.
Yes.
Certainly, but there's always, I think there's always people around who can be drawn into this. The people who kind of have a kind of hole in their heart and they're looking for something or someone to fill it. It's not unlike what draws some people to terrorist organizations, around the world. That there's a more explicit ideology, but he seemed to provide a kind of structure of meaning that this group took to heart. My understanding is at least one of them, all these years later, has really moved away from that and transformed. So that's always possible when very young people are involved in murders.
And so the killings themselves were so brutal and horrifying, occurring in a generation, a time when, peace and love were kind of the mantra. Did it end sort of an age of innocence?
Well, it's in the same period where we had Woodstock, which really was the high point of the flower power age of innocence. I'm old enough to remember that. But, it was shortly followed by the Altamont music festival, where you had murders committed right in front of the stage. So this releasing people is always a two-edged sword, that you release, in effect, the powers of light and the powers of darkness. And Manson sort of represents the worst of that part of it.
All right. Well, we're going to leave it at that for now because we have some breaking news to get to, but appreciate your time and perspective, Mr. Garbarino. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
James Garbarino.